Hey Y&R fans! Waving hand, welcome to Y&R Trends, your go-to spot for the juiciest Young and the Restless updates, shocking spoilers, and all the drama you can't stop talking about. From surprise returns to scandalous twists, we break it all down for you, every day. So grab your coffee, hit that subscribe button, and let's dive right into Genoa City's hottest gossip. According to spoilers for The Young and the Restless, there might be a super couple put to the test, a phony BFF catastrophe, and some drama at the launch party. Let's talk about the surprises that will be coming on the CBS soap opera, since there will be some excitement in Genoa City soon. 1. Abbott Communications' eagerly anticipated launch party is a dangerous venture. First off, with Sally Spectra taking care of the final touches, Abbott Communications is finally getting ready for their launch celebration. Billy Abbott has agreed to let Sally lead the new media company, which she hopes will make a big impact. Billy fully expects to take over Chancellor eventually, so there's no use in postponing the inevitable. But if this launch party doesn't go as planned, disaster might be on the horizon. Given that Kane Ashby has shown himself to be unreliable, we couldn't rule out his ruining the celebration. Kane might see through Billy's insider ploy, and Jack Abbott decline to make a deal with him. Kane might retaliate and target Abbott Communications in the process. Will Sally and her launch party be held accountable? 2. Nick's attempt to make friends with Kane can go horribly wrong. Regarding Nick Newman, he will continue to follow Victor Newman's instructions and maintain a false friendship with Kane. Nick will make every effort to form a coalition and divert Kane's focus from a takeover at Chancellor to one at Jabot. However, there is no assurance that Nick will be able to persuade Kane that they are now best friends. Nick's change in attitude will raise suspicions and may make Kane more cautious. If Kane realizes Nick is using him and retaliates, things could go very wrong. It will be fascinating to see if Kane can be astute about this and keep the Newmans guessing because he wasn't born yesterday. 3. The marriage between Victor and Nikki is put to the ultimate test. Meanwhile, all the corporate instability will put a well-liked Y&R super couple to the test. Although the love between Victor and Nikki Newman has endured well throughout the years, their marriage is set to suffer yet another setback. It is clear that Nikki disapproves of Victor's scheme to blame Jack and his family business. Nikki believes that the Abbotts don't deserve it, but Victor doesn't agree and will have no trouble feeding them to the wolves. The way things work out with Kane could cause tension in Nikki and Victor's relationship. Victor's marriage to Nikki may deteriorate the more he causes problems for Jack and Jabot. Stay in for updates on all the chaos, as spoilers for The Young and the Restless indicate that multiple storylines will feature shocking revelations and contentious exchanges. The early evening air in Genoa City was unusually warm for the season, with a hint of difficulty mingled with a sense of promise. As servers moved through the crowd carrying trays of champagne flutes, guests were arriving for the lavish launch party held at Chancellor Winter's, their laughter resonating off the gleaming marble flooring. Everything about the event had been meticulously prepared, including the decor, which was adorned with deep reds and golds, and the music, which was subdued yet loud enough to spark lively discussions. However, beneath every courteous grin and well-chosen attire, there were simmering frustrations that could not be resolved by event preparation. A few of them were private. Some were on business. And it was both for some unfortunate people. Devon stood close to the door, welcoming visitors as they entered, his face friendly but his thoughts anything but at ease. It was meant to be a celebration tonight, but he kept looking to the far side of the room, searching for a specific individual. Amanda was supposed to be there, but she hasn't shown up yet. She might just be running late, he told himself, trying to dispel the fear, but a voice in the back of his mind told him it was more. When Abby entered, looking gorgeous in a sleek, dark green gown, he pushed it down and grinned. Despite their greetings, Devon's gaze continued to dart to the door. Abby was aware, but remained silent. Tonight, she was there for her own reasons, some of which were absolutely calculated and some of which were personal. Phyllis was already stirring the kettle across the room. She was talking animatedly with a man she had just met a few minutes before while leaning over the bar, but her eyes were focused on two women who were standing close to the middle of the floor. Anyone familiar with Summer and Sally could notice the subtle tension in the way their bodies tilted slightly apart, but otherwise, they appeared to be having a friendly chat. They had a little too much practice in their smiles. They might have seemed like best buddies catching up at a fancy gathering to the casual eye. It was obvious to Phyllis and a few others that they were engaged in a game where each woman was concealing her actual thoughts behind a wall of courteous repartee. Phyllis grinned. She enjoyed a good fictitious BFF fiasco. Sally's laugh was musical and light, but as she looked at Summer, her eyes were keen. The epitome of grace, she tilted her head slightly and whispered, "I'm so glad we're putting the past behind us. Don't you believe life is too short to harbor resentment?" Summer returned the smile, the edges of her lips curling but falling short of her eyes. "Definitely," she answered in a kind but cool tone. "It's all about moving forward." Although they appeared to be two women coming together in harmony at that precise moment, the reality was much more tangled. They were both thinking about Nick, about old scars that had never quite healed, and about new lines that neither of them was prepared to let fall. Chance and Sharon stood side by side across the room, observing the dynamics. Chance nodded to Sally and Summer and muttered, "Looks like trouble's brewing over there." Sharon smiled slightly, knowingly. Some persons are unable to assist themselves. Nothing remains buried for long, though. That's Genoa City for you. Her eyes strayed to the bar, where Phyllis was now whispering something to Tucker, whose face was as unreadable as ever. Sharon felt uneasy, but she didn't share it. The launch was meant to take place tonight, and she was resolved to concentrate on the bright side, at least until it was hard to find. Adam's unexpected and unwelcome arrival marked the first significant change in the evening's trajectory. There was a tremor throughout the room just from his presence. Champagne glasses halted in midair, conversation stalled, and eyes followed him as he moved with that recognizable blend of calm detachment and arrogance. Sally looked at him from the other side of the room, and her poise wavered for a second. Summer saw right away. Nick, who had been circulating with a tumbler of bourbon, did the same. Everyone who knew Nick could tell by the slight change in his demeanor that something was going wrong. With a smile that was more historical than words could convey, Adam walked up to Sally. With his eyes fixed on hers, he replied smoothly, "I hear congratulations are in order." Summer moved a little closer, as though to blend in without directly interfering, and said, "You've done well for yourself." Sally smiled again, but it was a tight one. "I'm grateful, Adam." Adam remained motionless despite the courteous dismissal. "Enjoy the party." He hung around long enough for Nick to move across the room and stand squarely between them. Even the string quartet in the corner appeared to pause briefly before starting their set because of the intense tension. Another storm was building while everyone's attention was on that triangle as it developed. At last, Devon saw Amanda enter, but rather than feeling relieved, he felt uneasy. She wasn't by herself. Nate was by her side, and the two of them appeared to be at ease. Too cozy. Devon's thoughts raced through potential outcomes, each one more disagreeable than the previous. He took a stride in their direction, but Lily stopped him with a brief embrace before he could get to them. She responded brightly, "Big night," but she was keeping a tight eye on him. She had observed his response as soon as Amanda and Nate entered the room. She was already aware that this evening would put more than just business alliances to the test. Friends and former partners weren't the only people experiencing tension. Despite their best efforts to conceal it, Kyle and Summer, one of Genoa City's most adored super couples, were feeling the pressure. Kyle's thoughts were elsewhere, on a text he had received earlier from Audra that he hadn't shared with Summer, even though he had spent the majority of the evening having courteous conversations with various business partners. Although it wasn't flirty, it included enough uncertainty to make him feel something he didn't want to admit. Tonight, Summer, on the other hand, became more conscious of their separation. She had attempted to dismiss it as the inevitable disorder of a packed gathering, but she knew in her heart that it was more. Even though Kyle was standing right next to her, he always seemed a bit too far away when she looked at him. When Tucker made his move, the undercurrents of the night started to swirl more quickly. With a smile that stopped short of his eyes, he approached the microphone and broke the mellow music. The room echoed with murmurs as he spoke. "Ladies and gentlemen," his voice echoing across the audience, "before we toast to the future, I think it's only fair we acknowledge the complexities of the present." Tucker had a way of making things seem both threatening and complimentary. Those who knew him could sense the caution in his tone as he spoke hazily about openness and trust in business. It was specifically aimed at someone, but nobody knew exactly who yet. Standing close to the stage, Phyllis listened intently to every word and experienced a rush of excitement. She liked it when the plan for the evening deviated. Parties, in her opinion, weren't really memorable unless someone left crying or furious. She was already figuring out in her head how she could use this to her advantage, depending on who fell for it. There were so many potential fault lines tonight: Sally, Summer, Devin, Amanda, Nate, Kyle, Tucker, and it would only take one spark to blow everything up. That spark appeared when Adam chose to confront the issue, possibly encouraged by Nick's obvious annoyance. Without waiting for approval, he lifted his glass and yelled loudly enough for many groups in the vicinity to hear. "Cheers to fresh starts," he remarked, giving Sally a purposeful glance. Nick's jaw tensed as he said, "and to remember that sometimes, the past is worth revisiting." Summer intervened swiftly, advising everyone to concentrate on the launch rather than antiquity, but the harm had already been done. More and more people were drawn into the web of conjecture as whispers started to circulate. Kyle and Summer's silent discomfort eventually manifested itself in a more noticeable way in the corner. Her voice was low but tinged with suspicion as she asked him directly whether something was happening. He reassured her that everything was fine, but his voice was unconvinced. She was aware that he was concealing something, and that information weighed heavily on them both. Sharon saw the change across the room and mentally noted it. Although she had witnessed enough relationships in Genoa City to know when a storm was coming, she still cared about Kyle and Summer. The audience dwindled a little as the evening went on, but the tension remained high. Rather, it compressed into more focused moments, side chats in shadowed nooks, lingering looks, and remarks said in voices too low for the rest of the room. It was obvious by the time the last toast was made that this launch party would be remembered for far more than the champagne or the decor. At least one individual had left with more questions than answers, a super couple had been driven closer to the brink, and fake friendships had crumbled under the pressure. The night was never simply the night in Genoa City, it was the start of something new. There is always drama in the world of the young and the restless, and the most recent spoilers indicate that viewers will be kept on the edge of their seats by dramatic confrontations, dishonest alliances, and love anguish. The forthcoming episodes explore the high-stakes mayhem of a glitzy launch party, a deceptive friendship, and a cherished super couple confronting their most difficult obstacle to date. Every plot point is carefully constructed to increase suspense, reveal weaknesses, and test the characters' limits in order to keep viewers emotionally engaged in the drama as it develops. A apparently joyous occasion, the launch party swiftly devolves into a battlefield of egos, secrets, and grudges. In Genoa City, these kinds of events are rarely about champagne and congrats, rather, they act as triggers for conflict, bringing long-suppressed frustrations to the surface. A prominent corporate debut, probably connected to the influential Abbott or Newman dynasties, is at the heart of one of the main confrontations. The event is certain to draw scheming, sabotage, and unwary victims due to the history of corporate conflict between these dynasties. Sally's ability to regain her independence and establish herself as a powerful figure in Genoa City is a major justification for separating from Billy. Sally was most effective when she was plotting, defending her profession, and acting out intense emotional drama. Eliminating Billy's plotline might allow her to explore new business endeavors, renew old romances, like Adam, or even revive rivalries in a way that rekindles her original spark. Again, some fans contend that with the correct material, Sally and Billy's relationship may potentially develop into something more interesting. Maybe their relationship could be improved if the authors created a significant problem that really put them to the test, one that had Sally face her own goals and aspirations instead of just standing by Billy. There isn't much evidence, though, that this partnership will ever achieve the dramatic heights that Sally's character merits given the current course. In the end, the young and the restless must decide whether to free Sally's spectra to recapture the passion that made her a fan favorite or to keep imposing a romance that hasn't done anything to benefit one of its most promising newer characters. It might be time to break up Sally's connection with Billy and give her more freedom to shine if the program hopes to maintain her interest and relevance. Sally deserves better than a romance that is preventing her from moving forward, whether that means bringing back past lovers, taking on a new professional challenge, or introducing a new romantic interest. She is far too lively to accept the possibility of her character becoming relegated to the background the longer she is bound to Billy's erratic story.